Hey everybody, it's GombletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today I'm going to be playing another premiere draft of Throne of Eldraine, the flashback drafts of this pretty interesting format. It's got the Adamant ability, making you want to play more two-colored and primarily focused on one main color decks. It's got the Adventure mechanic, which is really fun, giving you creatures that are more flexible, that have sorceries attached to them. It's got a bunch of interesting stuff unique to the format. It's got a lot of food tokens you can get off of stuff like the bartered cow. That being said, we've got a really excellent mythic rare here. It doesn't use any of the set's mechanics, but it is an excellent card. A 2-mana 2/2 with reach and haste. This card was an absolute house in standard. It lets you draw cards out of your opponent's library if your opponent has more cards in hand than you when you're attacking with this, which is possible if you have a really aggressive curve and you dump out a 1-drop and a 2-drop, then they're going to just naturally have more cards in hand than you. So Robber of the Rich, really great place to start here. Super efficient rate. And if we make a really aggressive red deck with a lot of really cheap cards, then we can really make good use out of this ability. For pick 2, we have a Slaying Fire, which is a really good follow-up to Robber of the Rich. It is 3 mana removal, and if we pay triple red on it, we're getting to do 4 damage to any target for only 3 mana, which is a super good deal. Seems like a pretty excellent follow-up to Robber of the Rich. This is already a card that's going to incentivize us to play a very aggressive deck, which ideally would be focused primarily on red, so Slaying Fire feels like a pretty great place to be as the follow-up. If there weren't a Slaying Fire in here, we might go with the Rare Land. Pretty solid mana sink ability to have, just on a strictly better planes, basically. Just because there's nothing else in this pack that's that wild. Pick 3 now. We've got the Cauldron Familiar. If we can get the Witch's Oven, that is the 1-2 punch, the Wombo combo that lets you just keep getting the Cauldron Familiar back every single turn, which is nigh unbeatable in draft. So we could take that and really just try to do that. We could also take Mad Ratter here, though. The Draw 2 archetype is pretty nice. It's primarily in blue-red because blue has a lot of good card draw, and red has some of these cards that care about drawing a second card each turn. But even if you're mono-red, you can find some ways to pop off with the Mad Ratter. There are cards that let you discard a card to draw a card that would trigger the Mad Ratter if you cast that spell during your turn, because you draw 1 card during your draw step, then 1 extra card off of anything else is enough to trigger the Ratter. So I think I'm just going to go with the Mad Ratter here, just take the best red card in the pack and stick with what we're doing. But Trapped in the Tower is another really great option, very efficient removal, or the Cauldron Familiar if we want to try to get a little combo-y here. All right, things are looking pretty great for us to just stick to an aggressive red deck. There's also a Merfolk Secret Keeper here. This card is completely busted. It was pretty absurdly unfun during the quick draft era of Throne of Eldraine, where the bots just did not take these cards highly enough at all, and it is still, I think, like the highest win rate common. The blue-black mill deck is still the best archetype in the format, even in Premier Draft. I think blue and black have every single one of the top 10 commons in the format and every single one of the top 10 uncommons in the format right now, and a lot of that is because of the mill strategy that you can do with Merfolk Secret Keepers, bouncing them, replaying them, stuff like that. But that's not what we're doing today. We're going to take a Searing Barrage. We're very into red here. We're not really going to end up playing a mill deck, so we'll take the instant speed removal that can kill almost any creature with 5 damage and also shoot our opponent for a few damage. Great aggressive removal spell. Now we have a Bloodhaze Wolverine, which is another card that should work fine if we're already trying to draw extra cards. If we're already trying to draw extra cards each turn with Mad Ratter, then this is another card that can benefit from that, so we'll go for that. I don't think Ferocity of the Wilds is particularly great. It's a little narrow, only giving your attacking creatures a buff and only giving them a 1 power buff. The Trample can be big, but I think it's just a little too narrow. I'm going to go with the Wolverine here. Just kind of sticking to mono red here, seeing if we can live the mono red aggro dream. Alright, pack 1, pick 6, nothing in mono red for us. We could take a Scalding Cauldron, which would be fine. Scalding Cauldron is going to give us relatively efficient removal for the early game, no matter what colors we end up being. There's also a Flutterfox, though, which is one of the best white cards, because it's a really cheap creature that quite often can have flying. It has flying if you have a food token, it has flying if you have any artifacts or enchantments. So it's not that hard to trigger the Flutter Fox's flying, and a 2-mana 2/2 flyer is a really good deal. So it's between the Flutter Fox and the Cauldron. I'm going to take the Flutter Fox here, mainly because if we're not playing a secondary color and we're just mono red, I really don't think we're going to be missing out on removal. We already have a Slaying Fire and a Searing Barrage, and red is well known for its just mass quantity of cheap burn spells. So I don't think that the Cauldron is actually a card that keeps us that flexible and that open, because again, it's just not really going to make the cut with red as a main color in the deck, most likely. So just taking the Flutter Fox there. We're not tying ourselves to white, but it was the best card in that pack. Unfortunately, somebody's going to have a super sweet mill deck here. Now there's an Overwhelmed Apprentice, another card that's absolutely absurd in the blue-black mill deck, because there's all kinds of ways to bounce it back to your hand and recast it. But we're doing really well here for this really aggressive mono red deck. We got Rimrock Knight, one of the most aggressive commons. It has the Boulder Rush Adventure attached to it. So you can give a creature +2/+0 till end of turn, and it's also a 2-mana 3/1, so just a really high power, really cheap card. So here we have Fling and Merchant of the Veil. These are both solid. There's a lot of artifact, a lot of enchantment-based removal in the format that can lock down a creature, like Charmed Sleep or Trapped in the Tower. So Fling gives you a way to use those creatures that are locked down by those, so I do think it's a solid card. However, I prefer the Merchant of the Veil here because we have 2 different cards in our deck already that care about drawing 2 cards in 1 turn, and Merchant of the Veil is a really good way to trigger both of those cards in mono red, because we can haggle or we can use its activated ability, and if we use either of those during our turn, we're triggering our draw 2 cards. Now we have a Raging Redcap versus Dwarven Mine. Maybe I'm supposed to take Mine here because getting cards that are strictly better than Mountains is pretty sweet. But I like the idea of Raging Redcap alongside Rimrock Knight if we can get a few copies of it, because then we can get a really, really large damage swing out of those 2 cards in conjunction. That might be a little bit narrow, a little win more, but it sounds fun to me. And now we'll just scoop up all these Flings. And a Scarecrow. Halberd's actually fine for like a really aggressive deck. We're never going to hit green Adamant even if we are playing green, because red is going to be the primary color. So we'll take the Halberd. Okay, what have we got now? We've got a gigantic double-striking Fireborn Knight. We have a second copy of Mad Ratter, or we have a Castle Embereth. All 3 of these seem phenomenal to me. A strictly better Mountain that has a good ability for helping us chip in for the last few points of damage. A second Mad Ratter, so we can more consistently go for that draw 2 theme. Or just the biggest single-handed threat that we're probably going to get, a Fireborn Knight here that's going to be really hard to block well, and if it gets through, it's going to do a lot of damage. Very, very threatening card there with the Fireborn Knight. All 3 of these seem awesome. I don't think we can go super wrong here. Every single one of these cards is going to be a great addition to the deck. Kind of want to go for just one of the big creatures here. I think I'm going to go for the Fireborn Knight. That seems really fun. Also in conjunction with the Rimrock Knight, if we can get duplicates of that. So we're going to take that card really highly now that we have 2 double strikers, the Redcap and the Fireborn Knight. We've got an Ogre. It's a 4/3. When it damages an opponent, they discard a card at random and draw a card. Pretty whatever. This Ogre Errant, probably a bit better for us. When it attacks, give another attacking Knight menace till end of turn. Pretty phenomenal with the Fireborn Knight. I guess that's all it does, really. Fireborn Knight and the Raging Redcap. I guess it works with Rimrock Knight, too. Yeah, Ogre Errant might be fine here. Not really anything strong in any other color, except for Opt, if we want to go for blue-red draw 2. But I'm pretty married to mono-red if I can get there. Well, we are not getting past red cards this pack. We've already got a Flutter Fox, and Trapped in the Tower is one of the strongest cards in this pack. We also have a Fireborn Knight, which fits pretty snugly into a red-white deck, so start taking some white cards as a backup. If we need to run a second color, it will be white, and we'll go red-white here. So we'll cut these dorky artifacts. Okay, I already have Searing Barrage and Slaying Fire and potentially Trapped in the Tower if I'm in white, so I'm doing okay on removal. I also have Double Fling, so I am going to pass up a Searing Barrage here to pick up a Rimrock Knight. That might be wrong, but I just really like the synergies of this card with, as I said before, the Raging Redcap and the Fireborn Knight. We're also taking it over Ardenvale Tactician, which is another pretty sweet addition, because even if I am playing white, it's not going to be a ton of white, so it'll be a little difficult to hit the double white that it requires to cast this creature. Okay, Embereth Paladin's pretty big. When you are in mono red, you always hit the Adamant. 4 mana, 5/2 haste every time. Pretty nuts. Bargain is a fine combat trick for this kind of deck. And then there's Silverflame Squire or Knight of the Keep. Those aren't that exciting. I'll just take the Embereth Paladin here. Large hasting card. Gingerbread's actually kind of sweet. It gives you a card that has a pretty guaranteed way to keep getting damage in throughout the game, no matter how many blockers your opponent has. Especially if you can get any kind of auras or equipment, then it gets really, really good. So I actually like Gingerbread over the Bargain here. And if we really want Bargains, we should be able to get them hopefully pretty late. Another Ogre Errant is fine. There's also Hengewalker for just a 3 mana 3/3, which is a fine rate, honestly. It might be worth it here just for curve reasons. We've got 4 mana creatures already. I don't even know if the Ogre Errant's going to make the cut, so we'll slap a 3 mana 3/3 into the deck. Raging Redcap seems awesome. Whenever it attacks, you can tap and untap to non-humans, give it +1/+1 and trample, so it can really get in for some damage. I think we've got an okay amount of non-humans, although there's also a Weaselback Redcap, which can be really good. Play this as the 1-drop and make sure you're like super curving out. These are both excellent. I'm not going to go for Steel Claw Lance. I might go Weaselback Redcap here. Get a really, really quick curve and another Mad Ratter. The Mad Ratter did wheel, so we'll take it. We do want a couple more Merchant of the Vales if I'm going to run all of these Mad Ratters. But we'll see. Probably not playing Blow Your House Down, but it is a potential way to find lethal out of nowhere. Shutting off 3 blockers for the turn. So even if I'm mono red, I'm already at 20 cards here, so I just need to find 3 more playables in the last pack. Ideally 4 more. We're looking for primarily not 4 drops, primarily 2 and 3 mana plays, I guess. Although again, with the way our deck's currently looking, with only the Merchant of the Vale to trigger draw 2 spells, we probably could just cut the double Mad Ratter. Okay, so we have another Searing Barrage versus Elite Headhunter. 4 mana for a 2/3 menace is a pretty bad deal. However, the sack ability is solid. Sack a creature or an artifact to deal 2 to a creature planeswalker. Really gets a lot better if you have ways to produce food tokens or creature tokens, and we really don't have any of those. I feel like we already have flings if we want something in the main deck to play around enchantment-based removal, so I think I'm just taking Searing Barrage. Although Thrill of Possibility is another potential way to trigger the draw 2 spells, I think Searing Barrage is just going to be more consistently good. Just a very nice removal spell, we'll scoop it up. Another Slaying Fire is beautiful. Take that over a Scorching Dragonfire, that's another really good card though. 2 mana for 3 damage to a creature planeswalker, and you exile whatever you targeted, but the fact that Slaying Fire can go face is pretty sweet for an aggressive deck like ours. We can target our opponent's face, shoot them for a bunch of damage. Rampart Smash would be another really fun addition for the deck, just a 4 mana 5/5. Big old dork. Another Searing Barrage versus a Dwarven Mine. Now I have double Slaying Fire, double Searing Barrage. Probably actually just take the Dwarven Mine here. Just upgrade one of our mountains. Brimstone Trebuchet actually okay here because it fits into the curve well, and it's going to untap every time we cast a knight, which we have 3 or 4 of. We have 7 knights, okay. We actually get quite a bit of extra random damage off of this card. This is another draft pod where I live in fear of the blue deck that gets to mill everybody out that's coming out of this draft pod, because it's going to be absolutely devastating. It's going to be an obnoxiously powerful deck coming out of this draft pod. Another Fireborn Knight, another Dwarven Mine. take this Fireborn Knight, I'm probably cutting like the Skullknocker Ogre. There's also a Lock Dragon, and I don't have any flyers yet. And this does trigger the draw 2 stuff when it enters the battlefield or attacks. Actually, I'm probably on Lock Dragon there. Some more draw 2 synergy. So yeah, whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you're discarding a card to draw a card, which means anytime either of those things happen, you are triggering the second draw for the turn. So very good with the double Mad Ratter. Make that more viable here. Got a lot of 4-drops. Embereth Paladin is a good one, but I might want another Bloodhaze Wolverine just for curve reasons here. So I already have 4-4-drops. I don't know. I guess I'd cut an Ogre for the Paladin. Yeah, maybe we can wheel Wolverines more. Sure. Paladin is a lot of damage out of nowhere, and we did get a Wolverine right afterwards, so we'll take that. Now, we have 26 cards and 1 land in here. Ooh, another Embereth Paladin. I could splash in an Improbable Alliance and really go for the draw 2 theme, but now we're going mono red. With hybrid costs like this, we're going full mono red. Take another Embereth Paladin. I don't think that this one's going to make the cut, though. How many cards do I get to cut right now? 26 cards, one of which is a land. I have 25. I get to cut like 1 card and play a 16 land deck. Now I get to cut 2 cards since I just put that in there. So we'll cut Skullknocker Rogue and 1 Mad Ratter. I don't think we're definitely not playing Cauldron. We're probably not playing Thrill of Possibility. Or the Headhunter. I'll just toss a Headhunter into the sideboard. Rampart Smasher. Wow, there's so many good 4-mana plays. Makes it so difficult to choose. I think I just want to be all in on just 4-mana, 5-power haste creatures, though, to just try to end the game quickly. I guess a 4-mana 5/5 does more damage than a 4-mana 2/3 double strike if I'm not spending the million mana that it takes to buff that card up. So this is what the deck looks like if it's 16 lands. And this is what the deck looks like if it's 15 lands. So we get to cut some cards for sure. Swap things around a little bit. The problem is, yeah, the curve is awkward because we're a really aggressive deck, which means it's very important to have a good curve where we know that almost every game we get to curve out and make sure we're playing a 2-mana creature, playing a 3-mana creature, then playing a 4-mana creature, and just piling on to our opponent as quickly and aggressively as possible. But we don't have more 1, 2, or 3-mana options in the sideboard, so I think we just don't cut any of our 1s, 2s, or 3s. I can cut 2 cards. I could cut a Fling or 2. I'm not always going to play against enchantment-based removal, and it's pretty good with our 5-power creatures, though, to end the game as well. Just fling something at their face out of nowhere. I'm definitely cutting 1 Fling here. Drop down to just 2, treat that as a finisher when we have a 5-power creature on board. But maybe it's just cut a single Fling, cut a single Mountain, and then we have a 16 land, very aggressive mono red deck. Could be cool, could be where we want to be. Take a look through everything again real quick here. But everything looks perfectly reasonable. The Wolverines didn't quite get there, they're not going to be that strong. The Mad Ratter didn't quite get there, it's not going to be that strong. Because it only works with the Merchant of the Veil and the Lock Dragon. So I guess if I put all these aside, I could swap out Mad Ratter for a different 4-drop. That could be a thing. Swap Mad Ratter for the Fireborn Knight, or Mad Ratter for the Ogre Errant. But I don't really have cards to swap out the Wolverines for. I think I want to keep the Dragon, though. Just have 1 like flying threat in the deck. How many Knights do we have? Again, we have 8 Knights to work with the Trebuchet. I could put a 9th Knight in if I put Ogre Errant, which will untap the Trebuchet more often, and this has 8 other cards that can give Menace on attacks with, so Ogre Errant might actually be reasonable over Fireborn Knight, but I think it's definitely one of those two. I don't think Headhunter's that sweet in here when we've got the double fling going on. Yeah, and then our last cut is a Mountain or a 4-drop. I think it's going to be a mountain for me. What is our average mana looking like? Average 3.0? I do really want to hit 4 mana turn 4 every game. And then 5 mana, I've got some very powerful cards there too. Tiny bit of ways to make sure we don't flood out. We've got the Merchant of the Veil that's haggling all day long, and then the Lock Dragon. Sort of creatures and non-creatures in separate piles again. Maybe I just don't play the Ogre Errant and I just go 17 lands here. I think our deck is way better when we go 2, 3, 4 and then flood out a little bit than it is when we go 2, 3 and then get stuck on lands a couple turns. Because that 4-drop is massively impactful. Because all 5 of our 4-drops are really good. The turn 4 play coming out on turn 4 is pretty massive. Yeah, a little awkward to have this many lands in an aggro deck, but our 4-drops are just awesome. I really want to make sure I'm always hitting them on turn 4, so we're going to keep 17 lands in here, and I think we're going to call it a deck. Alright, here we have a look at the deck we're going to be playing today. It is a mono-red aggro deck, and it looks like a pretty busted one, but we'll see how it plays. We've got a good curve of aggressive creatures like Weaselback, Redcap, and Gingerbrute to start it off. Robber of the Rich being one of our biggest bombs. It gets out really aggressively, starts hasting in for damage, and potentially draws us cards out of our opponent's library. Couple Rimrock Knights, which are really good on the offense. They let us get some extra damage with Boulder Rush or have our creatures trade up with Boulder Rush. And they're 2 mana for a 3-power creature, which is good when you are in the lead trying to beat down your opponent. Couple Bloodhaze Wolverine. Not a lot of ways to trigger the second card draw each turn. We just need a curve of a lot of 2-mana creatures as the main reason they're in here. So these are probably going to be some of the weakest inclusions. They're going to be just a 2-mana 2/1 a lot of the time. But yeah, then we go to 3, we have a couple Raging Redcaps, which are really good with the Boulder Rush from the Rimrock Knights. We've got a Hengewalker as a 3-mana 3/3, Merchant of the Veil as our primary way to trigger the Bloodhaze Wolverines, letting us discard cards and draw cards. Also, our main way to get out of mana flood late game. Brimstone Trebuchet can do a lot of damage. We have 9 Knights total in this deck, so this is going to do damage to our opponent every turn no matter what, and potentially an additional damage every time we play a Knight. And we top off the curve with some really big ways to close out the game super quickly. We have 3 Embereth Paladins in a mono-red deck. This is a 4-mana, 5-power haste creature. So if your opponent doesn't have a block lined up for it, you're going to immediately just slam your opponent for a large portion of their life total. We also have Rampart Smasher, which is much better if your opponent does have blocks lined up because it's 5 power and 5 toughness. So really hard to block this while you're going to have to double or even triple block it. And that's where our great removal comes into play. We also have a Lock Dragon here as our one big evasive threat to try to chip in for some extra damage while triggering our draw 2 cards like our Bloodhaze Wolverines and potentially getting us out of mana flood as well. So the removal that we have to help if like a Rampart Smasher gets double blocked or help get a creature out of the way before we drop down an Embereth Paladin is 2 copies of Slaying Fire. This is 3 mana for 4 damage to any target in our deck, which is incredible. That can be 4 damage to our opponent's face, which is a ton of damage. Can really close a game out of nowhere. And then 2 Searing Barrages. This is 5 damage to a creature and 3 damage to the creature's controller. So it's putting in a lot of work for just 1 spell. And then a couple Flings. These are a bit flexible. If our opponent is in blue and they're playing tap down removal like Charmed Sleep, or our opponent is in white and they're playing pacifism removal like Trapped in the Tower, then this is going to let us get some value out of those creatures that have been locked down anyway. And the other way that this card is great is in any matchup, it's going to work as a way to try to find those last few bits of damage after our opponent locks up the board state. Say we can't get in well anymore and we've got a 5/2 Embereth Paladin just sitting there. If our opponent's low enough on life, we can just throw an Embereth Paladin at their face for the final 5 points of damage. So should be a pretty fun mono red deck that we're playing with today. We'll see how it does as we head into the gameplay. Here we are, game 1. Our opponent is on the play and we haven't drawn any of our 1 or 2 drops, so this is about as slow as our deck can get. That being said, if I hit a single land, I'm good on everything. And I am on the draw, so I have 3 turns to draw into a land. We're also at a 17 land build, meaning that 15 lands left in these 33 cards is just a tad under a 50% chance of drawing a land every single draw step now. We hit the 3rd land. We do have a lot of options. I'm going to roll with this here. I'm not super happy with it, but I don't think it's quite worth a mulligan. And we are against the bane of the format, Merfolk Secret Keeper here. I do have the Merchant of the Veil. Another way that this hand is pretty nice is that we have the Merchant of the Veil to just haggle away one of our expensive non-land cards. Probably just haggle away the Fling since I have a Searing Barrage and a Slaying Fire, if I really need that kind of interaction. So we'll do that right now, haggle away the Fling. We do hit a land. And now we have all 4 lands that we need. Have not drawn a 2-mana play though. And yep, our opponent is on the blue-black mill deck. Merfolk Secret Keeper hitting the board. And a golden egg is the play for the turn. They're going to draw a card. They can sacrifice that to gain some life later to really slow us down. Or they can get 1 mana of any color out of it. Drop a Brimstone Trebuchet here. Start pinging our opponent through all these blockers. Our opponent is going to go out and just a Reeve Soul to blow that up. Ooh, pretty happy with this line. They are activating the Wishful Merfolk so that they can attack with it here. I'm very okay with that. Fairly certain I outrace my opponent in terms of damage output, so them not having a 3-power creature to block with this turn is going to be really nice for me because it's going to let me get 5 damage in with this Paladin without having to worry about the Paladin trading into a Merfolk, which would have been pretty bad. Alright, another removal spell, Charmed Sleep it is. Well, a little sad we ditched the Fling now, but we needed to make sure we hit our land drops. A lot of lands here. We can use our Merchant of the Veil to try to get out of this. No attack this turn. They are not, they're not going to go that bold. They want to play around the 2nd Emberth Paladin now. They've seen the 1st. They live in fear. Yeah, I don't really need to blow any of these creatures up yet. Though it's probably pretty valuable to hold on to Slaying Fire so they can't bounce the Secret Keeper. But if they cast the thing that bounces 2 creatures, they're bouncing my Paladin right now. Well, I guess they bounce the Merchant. I'm just going to pass. I'm going to play it kind of slow here and play around Run Away together. So if my opponent tries to return their Secret Keeper to their hand, I can blow it up in response. So he can't get any more mill out of it. Because I can wait 1 turn to play the Merchant, because then I get to hold up the Slaying Fire and use the Haggle activated ability if I don't use it. Alright, opponent having absolutely no plays here makes me think they're going to have a Didn't Say Please. Merchant of the Veil is definitely our most important card here, so I'll play the Wolverine first. Okay, they're not countering the Wolverine. Like, we can wait on the Merchant. I'll just make sure to hold all these lands so I can turn them into non-lands from the Merchant later. Another Charmed Sleep. Okay. That works. You're still holding up 2 blue and 1, which is Didn't Say Please mana. And they're passing turn, not attacking with Merfolk. Could just be playing around Paladin, but I think it's far more likely they're just holding up Didn't Say Please. Rimrock Knight is definitely big enough to, well, I'd have to get rid of Secret Keeper first, but then it would be big enough to attack in. Again, the Merchant isn't really letting us get any more damage in, it's just letting us start filtering the lands away. So while I am just holding this Merchant playing really slowly, so it looks like these would be really bad plays if they don't have Didn't Say Please in their hand, we're not losing on anything, because Merchant's just going to bounce off of Secret Keeper every single turn anyway. So So we're not really losing any damage here. Might be at the point now where I'm okay with Merchant of the Veil getting countered. That way Slaying Fire and Searing Barrage can't get countered. Especially because I have a Weaselback red cap coming up. And that card is going to be a lot of power if we just play all of our lands. So let's let the Merchant of the Veil get countered by this. Didn't say please. No, didn't say please. Okay. They might just be being very, very restrained with their use of the counterspell. Or I might have been wrong. They might have not had it the whole time. But again, as I was saying earlier, there was really no downside to playing around it there because the Merchant not actually attacking in here. Okay. Now we get to start using its ability then. Hengewalker. Okay. Okay. I need to blow up this Merfolk Secret Keeper. Or I could just attack him with both my creatures and one of them trades off or gets in. There's a lot of things that'd be pretty bad to run into here if I just go for a Slaying Fire. Because if I play an instant speed removal spell and try to kill a Secret Keeper and then they return the Secret Keeper to their hand, that's going to be disastrous. Okay, I've got a lot of spells to cast here for mana, so I'm not going to be dumping a bunch of mana into red cap, so we'll cast the Hengewalker instead. And again, I'm constantly holding up this 3 mana, so my opponent never has an opportunity to run away together if they don't have, like, run away together plus a counter spell. Okay, Wicked Guardian. Oh. This might be the point where I make them have it. Because now, even if they have run away together, we're at least countering a card draw guaranteed. If they didn't say please, then they were going to have that at any time. Yeah, we'll go for it. Fingers crossed, run away together. If they have something, or they just have nothing. Alright, they've got nothing. Mirror Maid. Copy of Charm Sleep. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's very funny. Alright, trade the Knight into the 4/2. That's a pretty large trade up. Ooh, they don't want to do it. Play Weaselback Redcap and still hold up Searing Barrage? Or I could just play that and the Smasher. Yeah, they're tapped out here. Let's just get big. Tomb Raider. Alright, I might have been extra scared here. They started with a Secret Keeper. Oh, there's the Overwhelmed Apprentice. This might just be like our last blue-black deck where we didn't quite get there. We had like 1 Secret Keeper, 1 Apprentice, and then just a bunch of random good stuff. Kind of what it's feeling like here. But they do have a lot of blockers now. Not ideal, especially for the Rimrock Knight, now that it's going to have to just trade into an Apprentice or a Tomb Raider, and they scryed 2 to the top. I don't like seeing that. This opponent has infinite removal spells, though. 3 Charm Sleeps and a Reeve Soul. Ooh, another Rimrock Knight. That could do some big things. Searing Barrage is an instant, so that can also do some big things. Let's just send in the squad. I'm assuming Rimrock Knight and Weaselback Redcap are going to end up trading into their 1-power creatures. It's a little sad, but that means Rampart Smasher just gets to keep smashing in all day long. Those look like trades to me. Let's get some extra damage for free here. Oh my god, I totally forgot. It's been so long since I've played with adventures. If your adventure spell fizzles, the creature dies, which is disastrously bad. So yeah, it's not actually worth trying to get extra damage in positions like that, because if it goes wrong, it goes monumentally wrong. That's so brutal. Rough. Definitely won't be doing that again. Interesting. And that works. We discard one card here. I'd rather have a Ginger Brute or a random card. I don't really outrace them with a Ginger Brute, because they hit me for 8 a turn. I think I'm going to discard this. Ooh, Emberth Paladin is sweet. I might have to just play this right now to play around them having double Reaper of Night on top. What are the odds of that, though? That they scry 2 and both cards are Reaper of Night? Pretty low. I feel like it's a little better to try to surprise Paladin, because if they just hold Wicked Guardian as a blocker, that's a much worse trade than trading for their 4/5. So I'm going to try to trade for the 4/5. Nice, because I was going to say it's really likely they just tap out for the 4/5 this turn. That's the play. Oh, Secret Keeper is what they put on top. Oh, my Slaying Fire and another Paladin? Some brutally good mills. There's a Fling, though, which is a brutally good draw. Fling that right there. Attack for 8. They have no flying blockers, and they're at 7 life. Every draw from now on is blind. It's not something they've scried to the top. So if they don't hit like another Secret Keeper, I think we've got this. I think I am still looting, though. Get a Raging Redcap. Probably stop looting now. So what's left in our deck? Oh, the only thing left is another Raging Redcap. Yeah, don't. Straight up just do not loot. Oh, there's a Dwarven Mine. That's pretty good. Alright, so they're going to be at 1 life. Even if they draw removal for the dragon, they need it to be removal and a creature, or one of these 2 creatures on the ground gets in. There's Witching Well. That's going to scry 2, draw 2. If they hit a Merfolk Secret Keeper, they get us here. If they manage to draft triple Secret Keeper, we lose. That would be brutal. 2 to the bottom, draw 2. They have the removal. Did they draw removal plus creature or just removal? It looks like just removal. And that's going to be game. Really, really close one there. A couple potential misplays there. The one that's definitely a misplay was trying to get that extra damage out of the Rampart Smasher. Because again, if you use a combat trick style adventure, if the adventure half of your creature fizzles, it's like if you target a creature with your combat trick adventure and then the creature gets removed, the creature goes straight to the grave. So I just shouldn't have put my Rimrock Knight at any risk there. But it's been a while since I played with, since I've had that interaction come up. But that is a pretty devastating interaction that you want to be aware of. And I don't think the 2 points of extra damage were worth that risk with no knowledge of what's in my opponent's hand. So that I would say is 100% definitely a misplay. The other play there that may have been a misplay, the other major play there that may have been a misplay was choosing to draw off the Lock Dragon. Generally, I thought it was good because I know we have a lot of burn in our deck and flings and stuff. The way that it was a misplay is I didn't look through my grave and check first. And I did check via Untapped after I did that, and then I saw that my deck was literally all lands and one copy of Raging Redcap. And when the deck is just lands and a Raging Redcap, it was not worth drawing the card because drawing that card did put us dead to a second Merfolk Secret Keeper. Now, if our deck was like 2 flings, a Redcap, and 3 lands, probably would be worth going for that draw. But that's not what we had left. We had just a pile of lands mostly, and I went for the card draw there. So I was putting myself at extra risk of dying to another Merfolk Secret Keeper for very little reward there. But I guess it did work out because we drew the Dwarven Mine a turn earlier to get the damage in. But still, it was a risky line there. So lucky stuff there. Pretty nasty blue-black deck from our opponent, but they just drew their Secret Keepers a little too late. We didn't see a single Runaway Together. 1 or 2 copies of Runaway Together there would have been the difference, or just one more copy of Secret Keeper, stuff like that. Could have very well been a loss, but we'll take that victory and run with it as we head into Game 2. All right, here we are in Game 2 on the play. Again, don't have any 2-drops. We've got Raging Redcap into the Embereth Paladin with some removal alongside. See how it works out here. Another hand I'm not the biggest fan of. But we are on the play this time, which is pretty sweet. Let's get this ball rolling. What do you have? Opponents? They are also on red. Uh-oh. If they have a 2-drop, they might become the aggressor, even though we're on the play. Oh, they're blue-red, so they are probably blue-red draw 2. Start with a Raging Redcap. They have something that could target it here. They might just Dragonfire it away. That'd be pretty fine with me. In our deck, most of the time, Redcap's basically a 3-mana 2/2. So, not a bad deal for that to get shot down here. They've got a Midnight Clock here, which means they are tapped out. And our Embereth Paladin gets in for at least 1 massive swing. And then we have a Slaying Fire. If my opponent just tries to put a blocker on the board for it, we can shoot that out of the way and hit our opponent for 5 again, which should be really nasty. If our opponent has Charmed Sleep, that is also nice for us because Fling is very good with a 5-power creature. So being able to fling a Charmed Sleep Embereth Paladin would be awesome. So we're just going to send in and see what happens here. I just deal another 5 damage. I'm going to be a very happy camper. Nope. Searing Barrage it is. Nothing we can do about that. We could fling this at their face, since it's going to die anyway, just to get a 5 damage trigger out of it. I'm not super sure that's worth it. It's probably not, but it could be. Another 5 damage to my opponent's face is pretty big. I have no other 5-power creatures in hand that'll be flinging that hard. If I do that, though, I'm only playing a Wolverine this turn instead of a Dragon. I'm just going to play the Dragon this turn, discard the land. Close decision, though. Like, 2 mana for 5 damage to your face would be like a really excellent spell all on its own, but I feel like my opponent could very well have Charmed Sleeps and stuff. And we can just actually kill creatures and get that stuff out of the way with our flings later. They're going to have 2 Tome Raiders? Ooh, Tome Raider and Animating Fairy. That is enough to kill a Lock Dragon or an Embereth Paladin. Kind of want to Slaying Fire the Animating Fairy so I can get a hit with Lock Dragon guaranteed. And then they also don't have a 2-power creature to block my Paladin on a future turn. Doesn't seem wonderful, but it seems fine. So we'll do it. And I don't think I'm going to discard and draw here. I could see discarding Fling as being okay, but I do have another 5-power creature now because I've got another Paladin in hand, and Fling with those 5-power creatures is always super exciting. Another Tome Raider. Well, now they can double block the Embereth Paladin. Or the Lock Dragon. Oh, and they've got a Cauldron to blow one of them up. I actually do want a 6th land now, off the top. Merfolk Secret Keeper. Or they're choosing not to, they're just immediately playing it as a blocker because they're scared here. And they've got a Midnight Clock they're trying to activate, because Midnight Clock, if it activates, just straight up wins the game. So they're just playing as defensively as possible. Searing Barrage is not bad here. I might just attack, discard Fling now to trigger Wolverine. And then they block Wolverine with Secret Keeper. Block Lock Dragon with both Raiders, and I shoot a Raider. Then they Scalding Cauldron Lock Dragon next turn, and then I play a Hasting Paladin to start attacking with that next turn. Yeah, so next turn they're going to blow up my dragon with Scalding Cauldron, but their only blocker is going to be a Secret Keeper, and I'm going to have a Hasting Paladin. This Midnight Clock is getting really dangerously close to triggering. Could have just held on to Fling there and not attacked with Wolverine. May have been better. Actually, it probably would be. They're getting low enough on life. One Fling would have been sweet to have. Okay, Dragon's gone, and here's Merchant of the Veil, so now they have another blocker big enough for the Paladin. Robber of the Rich. Our opponent has much less cards than us right now. However, that is about to change when they trigger Midnight Clock. So I play Smasher this turn because I don't want to trade Paladin into Merchant of the Veil. And then next turn, if I hit a land, I just double up both of these. Witching Well. Yeah, probably should have kept Fling here. That would have been pretty big. Only having to hit them for 4 to finish the game. Alright, pop the Witching Well. That means Robber's active this turn. Never mind, they played a card. Charmed Sleep, there it is. Alright, well, we've got a card to Fling. Dang it. Loved a way to kill this Merchant of the Veil. I could just trade my Paladin into it, that's okay. Because then Robber of the Rich gets to pop off, but they're going to have a full card. Full hand of 7, Midnight Clock's pretty busted. I draw 7 cards for free. They're going to have all of their mana up. Trade into a Merchant of the Veil, and then we're hoping to hit like Fling Slaying Fire to end the game. Because I doubt they don't get to play like a million blockers this turn. That is a million blockers. Enchanted Carriage is very, very good. Actually forgot that card existed, but yeah, this card is bonkers. Because it gives you 2 1/1 blockers, so if 1/1s are good blockers, you're set up, but you can also just crew it off of those 2 1/1s to block with a 4/4 instead. Monumentally powerful card. Oh, they're just going to make it a permanent 4/4 instead? Okay. We've got the Fling. If I hit a Slaying Fire, then I just win on the spot? Or if I get 4 attacks out of this Ginger Brute. Do you need my opponent to not have a counter spell? for the fling. But they tapped out this turn, so maybe they'll just keep tapping out. Maybe I should have just held Robber of the Rich so that I can try to bait a counterspell out with it, but I doubt they're countering a 2/2 when they have a 4/4. And this way, if I draw into Slaying Fire, I can cast Fling and Slaying Fire in one turn. Improbable Alliance. They are starting to kill us pretty quick. Down to 16. Corridor Monitor and untap the Carriage. Cast the Animating Fairy. Okay, this seems like they definitely just don't have counterspells if they just keep slamming stuff down like this. Okay, that is definitely not a Slaying Fire. Do I try to draw one out of their deck? This is probably stupid. This is almost definitely the wrong choice, but it would be so funny. So I'm going to go for it. Hypnotic Sprite. That's actually genuinely interesting. Tried to live the dream there. Could you imagine if it was Slaying Fire? That would have been so bonkers. Would have been incredible. 100% incredible. Two more Gingerbrute hits. Home Raider. Carriage and a bunch of 1/1s and a flyer coming in. Take 8. Next turn I block with just enough stuff to not die. Block, block, take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Uh-oh, well now I might just die next turn. Maybe I should have chumped Carriage there. Be a little more damage. Stopped. Yikes. I can't get 2 more attacks out of this Gingerbrute. So if I attack with Gingerbrute this turn, they have lethal on board, I think? Because I'm blocking with 2 creatures. So I block there and I block there. I take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. I'm dead on board if I attack with Gingerbrute. So now I just have to hit Searing Barrage or Slaying Fire. Anything like those to get there. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They are attacking in such a way where I have to lose my Gingerbrute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. I have to lose Ginger Brute here. I'm eating my poor Ginger Brute. So sad. Okay, what do I have in my deck? Rimrock Knight? I have 2 copies of Rimrock Knight. That would do it. 1 copy of Slaying Fire and 1 copy of Searing Barrage. All of those would do it, and I have the mana to do all of those. So I have like 5 outs. Please no counterspell. Please don't have the counterspell now. Oh, draw, discard a card. Their final draw step. Do they find it didn't say please? They, oh my god. What a draw. Not only does it find us the victory there, but it finds us the victory in the coolest way possible. Boulder Rush on our Charmed Sleeped creature for the pre-fling buff. Oh my god. That makes up for those last few turns of draws. You say, I guess that wasn't actually that incredibly lucky of a draw when you consider that we had 4 or 5 outs there and we waited a few turns to draw into it, so it's not like the second that I had the fling for lethal I hit it, but we hit it at the last possible opportunity that we could have hit it and still won that game, so that was pretty sweet. And that'll be 2-0 now as we head in to Game 3. Here we are in Game 3 on the play. We've got Blood Haze Wolverine with Merchant of the Veil. We've got our draw 2 combos. But yeah, we're on the play with a good curve. This is the first time we've had a 2-drop in our opening hand, so that'll be pretty nice. I might even just curve out Wolverine into Hendwalker, just to get the most power on board as quickly as possible. 2 mana 2/1 into 3 mana 3/3. Save this Haggle so I have a 1 mana way to trigger Wolverine on a later turn. That way on turn 4 I could Haggle plus cast Merchant if I need to give that Wolverine some first strike. Really don't like that my opponent is dropping down a turn 1 Cauldron Familiar. That gets me very worried. The card is already pretty powerful in the green-black food deck if you have a lot of food production. And if you've got the Witch's Oven, it's pretty much impossible to beat in draft. So we're going to hope our opponent does not have the Witch's Oven combo here. So we're going to go for the Merchant of the Veil trick here. And they are not going to take the bait. We're going to play around that, so we'll play the Hendwalker. 3 mana 3/3. The trick there is that I could haggle at instant speed to give the Wolverine first strike if they attempted to block there. They're just going to buff the red cap? They are. They're just getting aggressive here. Okay, well, I guess we lose. So the Witch's Oven Cauldron Familiar combo, that is a combo that's banned in a lot of constructed formats, or was banned in a lot of constructed formats. The way it works is they get to sacrifice the Cauldron Familiar to get a food, then they get to sacrifice the food and get the Cauldron Familiar back on board. So every single turn they get to loop the Cauldron Familiar, which means that they have infinite, basically indestructible blocks. They'll just go Familiar onto Walker, sack the Familiar, it goes to grave, they take no damage from the Walker, and then they get the Cauldron Familiar back from grave and drain me for a life, and they do that every single turn with the Witch's Oven, so we probably just lose to that, if I'm being honest. But I am still going to do the best I can here. Just, I guess, just play as many creatures as possible. And hit as much as I can. Still got the Haggle trick if I need it. I think I'm going to play Merchant of the Veil this turn, so I really might as well haggle for the 1 point of extra damage. Because I don't need all these mountains. So here starts the Witch's Oven Cauldron Familiar combo. They get the block on Hengewalker without having to actually lose a creature. And they're going to gain a life and we're going to lose a life. And the cat is still going to be around. Bake the merchant into a pie. They have 2 foods lying around for the Cauldron Familiar. They're going to bring it back here. They're going to sack it again next turn. On blocks. Probably block their Weaselback Redcap with our Weaselback Redcap is the plan. They've baked our merchant into a pie, so we can't discard these lands for any value. Probably make a unblockable Gingerbrute here. Because if they do just straight up block there, they probably just won't sack the cat, because then they can just bring it back with this food and then sack it after that. So, seems like a pretty bad deal if I let them trade the Familiar into the Gingerbrute. Unfortunately, also a pretty bad deal if I let them trade Familiar into Wolverine, because then I'm trading Wolverine for this food token. Yeah, getting an extra food out off this bake into a pie is making things even worse for us. If they weren't already bad enough. Yep, the cat combo continues. There's our red cap for the red cap battle. That's actually fine. Just get rid of my fling here. I could fling Gingerbrute into the red cap instead, but our red cap just dies to a Cauldron Familiar anyway because they've got the extra food. So I'm pretty sure I'm just straight blocking red cap on red cap. I guess I could just guarantee the trade works exactly how I want it to. Yeah, because they're going to have a Cauldron Familiar, red cap's going to be a pretty horrible attacker. We'll go red cap on red cap here. At least the Wolverine, we've got one more way in our deck to maybe give it first strike. They could sack the red cap to the Witch's Oven, have one extra bonus food lying around. Guess who's back? The cat is back. Yeah, this is really devastating, because we're just taking more damage than we're dealing to them every turn. We're dealing 1 damage to them, but they're gaining 1 life, so we're essentially not affecting their life total at all, and they're just draining us. If I really wanted to affect their life total, I could attack with all 3, but then they have a really good block of just Cauldron Familiar on Wolverine, take the 4 damage for now, but then they kill one of our creatures permanently, and then still get the cat back because they have the extra food. They don't have to sack the cat to the oven. If they only have 1 food lying around, they do have to sack the cat to the oven. Or if they have no food lying around, they have to sack the cat to the oven, but they've just got extra food. Every extra food token sitting here is 1 trade they can full on make into a 1 toughness creature on our board. Just keep doing what I can. Guess this is trading into a Lost Legion. More than likely. I have no cards in my hand. I don't know what this is about. This is a reconsideration of the blocks? They're just trying to find lethal out of nowhere here. Nope. They're just going with the blocks again. They have the headhunter with the cat combo. That's actually absurd. Yeah, now they can use they can throw their food token at one of our cards, or they can throw the familiar at one of our cards and then bring it back with the food token. This is all kinds of incredibly bad. I'm just going to scoop here. I don't have any outs to this, and it's going to take another 9 sacks or 10 sacks to die. So I'm just going to move on. We cannot get through 17 life. That keeps gaining every turn. Game 4. We got cat comboed hard in round 3. Alright, a little bit high on lands here, but Wolverine plus the dragon is nice, and we have a 2-3-4 curve. We are on the draw, though. Went with a turn 1 Scalding Cauldron, pretty good. They are on blue-black. Got our Wolverine on board, and here comes a Fairy Vandal, so if they draw an extra card during their turn, or if they draw 2 cards during our turn, that will get bigger. I'll lock down the Wolverine with Queen of Ice. Opt to make the Fairy Vandal bigger. It's a 2/3 flyer now. Dig for their land for turn. Must be a powerful non-land on top of their library is what I would guess. And they are going to scry to the bottom, dig for the land. Alright, they hit a swamp. They have double black up. Surprised they just held for blocks here. I guess they're scared of the double strike. If they're just holding for blocks, we'd probably play the dragon so we can hit them with Wolverine guaranteed. For now. Then they shoot dragon with the cauldron, but then I have paladin to send in, but then paladin trades for vandal. Don't love any of this. But I think we play the dragon here. We want to discard one of these things. Maybe it'd be better to just offer trade with paladin right now, because the dragon to keep drawing cards would be solid. But they do have to tap out to kill the dragon here. They'll have 1 mana up after they do. Alright, they do tap out to kill the dragon. Right, we are pretty free to just send in this turn. I just slay the Vandal, which is almost definitely worth it. They're down to 12 now. Queen of Ice hits the board alongside a Hypnotic Sprite. Hypnotic Sprite is not a good blocker, but Queen of Ice definitely is. Can't really get through that Queen of Ice right now. Probably do a turn of setup here, just play the Trebuchet to start tapping and pinging our opponent. And we're waiting to draw another burn spell or a combat trick or something. I'll hold on to this land. We still have a merchant in our deck. Opponent's at 6 mana now. They're going to pass the turn. They could have a Lockmere Serpent. The big blue-black rare that is a super bomb. Let's just start going for some Trebuchet hits. Again, with all this mana up, they have something instant speed most likely. It could be a Charmed Sleep. Red Cap is a solid enough blocker, they might just counter it. And they do. I meant to say they might have a didn't say please. I think I said they might have a Charmed Sleep. That was a misspeak. Okay. Paladin doesn't really have a great attack because it just trades into Hypnotic Sprite. And we've got to be getting to the point where our board is wide enough that we just send everybody in anyway. But if I attack with everybody, like trade there, and then they kill one of these without losing a creature, which is really bad. We're getting close though, because going down to 10 life this turn. Charm Sleep the Trebuchet. Okay. Ooh, Rampart Smasher's huge, and they don't have double blue up because they just spent it on a Charmed Sleep. Cast the heck out of that. Very good draw. Another Charmed Sleep, just Charmed Sleeps all day. I'm glad I left at least 2 flings in this deck, because... Ooh, that card has been shown up. If I attack with everybody, they get to block and kill my Robber without losing a creature, and they get to trade into my Paladin with the Sprite and take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sure. I only hit an island. Rough. This puts them at dead to fling, and I have 2 flings in the deck. That's why I went for this amount of damage. The other reason is if Robber of the Rich hits a non-land card out of their deck, I lose 2 cards, but I draw a card, so I essentially am down 1 card in the interaction, but my opponent also loses a card, so they're down 1 card in the interaction. So if I had hit a non-land card off Robber of the Rich, it would be an equal interaction in terms of cards lost. But either way, it gives us a lot of outs now, such as Fling. You just go boop. And there we go. Draw into one of the 2 flings we were playing for. And that will be 3-1 now as we head into game 5. Oh wait, no. Maybe 2? Nope. The only round we've lost was the cat combo round. So 3-1. Nice average run no matter what, but 1 win away from pretty much breaking even, so we'll see if we can at least get there heading into game 5. All right, here we are, game 5 on the play. A couple 2-drops. We've got the Trebuchet to start flinging whatever this is at our opponent. They've got some kind of digital samurai sleeves. I need to draw 1 more mountain before I play this Dwarven Mine, ideally. And we got there. Lochthwain Gargoyle, a 1 mana 3 toughness creature. Our poor Bloodhaze Wolverine gets to cry itself to sleep. However, we can threaten to have a haggle. And our opponent doesn't care, because Lochthwain Gargoyle is not that good. Unfortunate. If they valued the gargoyle's life more, that might have been good for us. Alright, we're losing a little bit of Trebuchet value, but curving out very aggressively here. We're dealing 8 damage to them if they just block Wolverine. Putting them to 12 feels like a really good place to be. And they're just going to scoop them up. They are over it. They're like, yeah, mono red curve, get out of here. I'm done. I'm done with this game of Magic. That's going to be 4-1 for us. We're now breaking even, essentially, this draft. Let's see if we can keep the win rate up here and potentially get in the money. Get some value out of the draft. Here we are for game 6. Tiny bit low on lands, but I think that's pretty fine. The hand looks pretty gas otherwise. Got our 2 mana 3-1 into our Trebuchet. And some Slaying Fires to clear the board. Jousting Dummy to start things off. I would Boulder Rush that for jokes, but I could draw another 2-mana creature and play that instead. Alright, we didn't draw a different 2-mana creature, so I guess I should have Boulder Rushed the Jousting Dummy for value. That would have been cool. Double Fling's a little awkward in the opener, especially against Black-Red here. They're not going to be a Charmed Sleep deck. I cannot try to take that trade because I can't block. I can try to send into this Tempting Witch, though. Which is probably fine. I can also slay it with fire. I don't actually have more threats. But the knight's just going to trade to the dummy anyway. If it doesn't trade for the witch, so. Offer the trade there. A 1/3 body is really good on this board state. So it might draw removal from them. We might cast a Reeve Soul or something on the Brimstone Trebuchet we're going to play. Ooh, we do get to trade with the witch. All right. Take it. Nope. We don't get to trade with the witch. Massive question mark slowly appears on screen. Okay, we do not get to trade with the witch. Kind of fine either way that happened there. I think I slightly would have preferred trading for the witch. Because again, I don't think our Rimrock Knight's going to end up doing much throughout this game, because if push comes to shove, they can always just trade the Jousting Dummy for it later, stuff like that. And they do have the Reeve Soul for the Trebuchet. Very sad day there. That is really aggro. Alright. They're doing it. Really aggro it is. Oh, they've got another Jousting Dummy. I see. Well, this is pretty bad for us. Jousting Dummy for Rimrock Knight is not a great trade, but it is all we have right now. Then I just play Bloodhaze Wolverine for Jousting Dummy and just see where things go from there. Yeah, we don't really get to be on the aggressive. We kind of just have to draw a big creature. Should have played that post-combat, but I'm a little impatient. I'd be surprised if they don't take this trade. But that's a fine option. Because their Jousting Dummies can get additional power. They can attack pretty hard. Oh yeah, they are going to take the trade. Makes sense. Pass turn. At least now I've got a fling that I can use in response to removal to make sure no matter what we're killing a Jousting Dummy here. So if our opponent has more removal in hand, that's pretty good for us. Ooh. They are playing around me having a Haggle or something to buff the Wolverine, not even attacking with the Witch here. Alright, it is time for the stare down. I do have some 5-drops in the deck, but I think I still hold on to this Mountain for now because I have Lock Dragon and Merchant. That would both be solid draws at this point. Although if I play the Mountain, I can play Fling and Slaying Fire. Yeah, if I draw another land, I'll hold it, but having all 2 and 3 mana cards in hand, by having 5 mana on board, I can cast both these spells if something happens where I need to. Alright, yeah, we're just at the stare down here. And there we go. That is a solid way to end the stare down. The plan is to kill the Jousting Dummy so they have nothing on board that can kill the Paladin. Oh my god, that's the 4th Jousting Dummy? No, it's the 3rd. Well, they are going to have something on board that can kill the Embereth Paladin unless I cast both Slaying Fires, but I don't have the mana to do that. I could fling my own Wolverine at a dummy here. They only have 1 card left in their hand. It doesn't feel great, but it's probably worth going down cards to do this. Is it worth going far down cards to do this and fling the Wolverine at the dummy right now? So that I can just attack with a Paladin immediately next turn? Sure, let's just get miles behind here. we're not behind in cards. They only have one card left in hand. It's just I could use these cards way more efficiently in terms of card advantage, but I think that's where we need to be right now. We need to actually try to close this game. So that's what we're doing. There we go. Made it a board state where an Embereth Paladin can attack in, and it worked out really well for us because we drew a second. So now it's a board state where 2 Embereth Paladins can attack in, which is beautiful. Now they're down to 2. We have plenty of ways to kill them now, even if they play a board wipe or something. A hasty Deathless Knight is scary. Okay. But that's it. We try to just Slaying Fire them, and it does work. No response to that. It is going to be 5-1 now. Now getting some good value out of the draft, leaving with more gems than we spent for entry. Feels pretty good. For our mono red deck, that Arena likes to... Ooh! Red and 7 is a great random reward, but yeah, great stuff from the mono red deck that Arena likes to lie about and say that it's blue, red, green. Oh, hybrid mana cards. I missed hybrid mana cards. I want another set with a bunch of hybrid in it. I wanted to return to Shadowmoor. Shadowmoor and Eventide. Hybrid mana stuff's really cool. Like our Rampart Smasher and our Lock Dragon. I feel like it's been a long time since we've had hybrid. I think it's been since Eldraine. I could be wrong there, but that's what it feels like to me. There haven't been like impactful hybrid cards in Limited since then. So here we are now in game 7, I believe. It's an excellent curve. 1-drop, 2-drop. No 3 mana play, but Paladin on 4 is always pretty great, as we've seen. Or it's frequently pretty great. Scald and Cauldron again. We've seen a lot of those as well. And now we did draw 3 mana play, so we're just going to do the full curve out here. Try to get as aggressive as possible as you do. Playing against blue-green. Blue-green is sort of a ramp strategy in this format, which is pretty fun. A lot of limited formats, blue-green is just ramp, but some really nice adventures in the blue-green archetype, like the Beanstalk Giant with its Fertile Footsteps. That's a 3-mana sorcery. Just search your library for a basic and put it into play. And then the Beanstalk Giant that's attached to that adventure is a 7-mana creature with power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. So that's like a really sweet one for the green-blue ramp archetype. And then the hybrid card, the Signpost Uncommon, is the Thunderous Snapper. It's a 4-mana 4/4 turtle that lets you draw a card when you cast a spell that costs 4 or more. Pretty happy with that line from our opponent. They're just playing really defensively. They're going to throw their Bubbling Cauldron at our 2-mana creature, which means it doesn't get to be thrown at our 3 or 4 mana threat. Yikes. Wicked Wolf is a very good card. 4 mana 3/3. It fights something when it enters the battlefield, and if they get any food, they can start making it indestructible every turn. So I think I'm just going to offer the trade for Paladin while they don't have food. But even if this trade happens, the Wicked Wolf has still gotten a 2-for-1 off of us. A very good rare there. It still killed our 3-mana play and our 4-mana play, so we are not off to a great start this game. And here's a Fae of Wishes from our opponent that can block all day long. We've got a Searing Barrage to blow it up. Do I want to do that before they have double blue up so they can't cast a Didn't Say Please? Or do I want to play my Lock Dragon and immediately start filtering this mountain away? Blue-green can play much worse threats than a 1/4 flyer. And they could discard 2 cards to put this back in their hand if I try to shoot it right now, but that's probably just good for us. I think I'm just going to play the dragon here. I am going to need to redraw a 5th land at some point now. But if I'm not using the Searing Barrage to kill the Fae of Wishes, I probably don't need it for another turn or 2. And I can always use the Lock Dragon to discard the Fling to try to hit another land. Oh, Not if it gets killed here, which looks like it might. They are eyeballing the board something fierce. Yep. Outmuscle, goodbye, Lock Dragon. Well, now that's a 2/5 flyer. That's going to be incredibly hard to get through. We'll just blow it up. But again, I do expect my opponent's probably going to play something bigger that will likely die too. There's not a lot I can do about that. Just nothing yet? Nothing yet. And now we drew a Slaying Flyer, so we have more removal. That's excellent. They do have double blue up now. If they have, I didn't say please. May I please cast my Weaselback Redcap? Thank you, opponent. There we go. We just got to be courteous every spell we cast from now on, so that they can't legally target it with didn't say please. Charmed Sleep. They can definitely legally target it with that. This is pretty fine for us because Weaselback Redcap's a really fun one with Fling later, even if it's tapped down by a Charmed Sleep. Because I can still dump a bunch of mana into making it bigger and then fling it at a face. If I have 6 mana, it's going to fling as 5 damage. So, still does some stuff, some fun stuff too. Dwarven Mine is a great draw because we do want the 6th mana so that we can double pump Redcap and fling it. I can shoot them for 9 in the face between Slaying Fire, and Fling. Which is pretty big. If they have 0 interaction, unfortunately, they're going to get a food token here, draw a card. If I fling my 1/1 at them, I am stopping them from drawing a card and getting a food token. So I'm basically doing 3 extra damage to them and countering a card draw. And then Fling does 1 damage. So I'm essentially getting 4 damage out of Fling instead of 5 and countering a card draw. So I'm giving them 1 life to counter the card draw. I think that's got to be worth it. Yeah, and then it doesn't resolve, they don't draw a card, they don't get a food. A little unfortunate though, I was really kind of banking on a big Redcap Fling to end the game, but if that resolved, that wouldn't work either because they were going to gain 3 more life and get them pretty far out of range of the 5 damage Redcap Fling. Plus again, drawing the card, also a pretty big deal here, can help them hit creatures, which they're doing pretty bad on there. Really hoping for creatures off the top, I'm assuming, because otherwise I'm not sure what's going on over there. This could just be like Mega Flood. Hypnotic Sprites. Maybe they were just holding on to the Hypnotic Sprite for a counterspell forever. But I think they had a blue and 2 up last turn when I cast my Fling. They would have just countered that. So maybe they just now top decked that. Then a Gigantic Tree Folk. Okay. There we go. Now we see one of these they were holding in their hand. That is really bad for us. We can still hit them with Gingerbrute, and if we hit them with Gingerbrute 4 more times, we can kill them with Slaying Fire. But they are going to outrace us. So we need to find just 1 extra way to get a couple more damage in. We need to get them down to 4 life here. Alternatively, if they don't have a counterspell in hand, they only had 1 card left in their hand, and whatever they top decked here, it's probably worth trying to Slaying Fire the Tree Folk and then block with Redcap. Oh, they're not even going to attack. Okay, well, then never mind. Then we just hold on to Slaying Fire as we've been doing. Oh, it's another Charmed Sleep. Yeah, I can't do anything about that. I can't even sack the Brute because I have to tap it to do that. Okay, well that's bad. But Slaying Fire, if they've got nothing left in hand, Slaying Fire does make sure the Redcap can start getting in. I probably should have just done this pre-combat, because then if the last card in their hand was didn't say please, we immediately know if it resolved or not. Although, no, I don't think that's the right line, because then if it isn't a didn't say please, they could just choose to take the 2 damage from red cap, and it's definitely better to kill the tree folk than hit them for 2. Most likely. Alright. They do not have a good blocker for red cap. Ooh, and Merchant of the Veil is a huge draw. I'm going to do that right now, in case I draw into a Boulder Rush. Rimrock Knight here. Do they have the counterspell now? Run away together. Wow, yeah, that is disgustingly good. Yikes. Use the Sprite as the counterspell off the run away together. And slow down the red cap. Slow it down just enough to draw into the Stolen by the Fae, which is an incredibly powerful rare that's going to bounce it back to our hand and create 3 1/1 flyers. Another one of the least beatable rares in the format. I think that is actually number 1 on the leaderboards right now. Searing Barrage is pretty good here, and red cap is still very difficult for them to block. Put them to 4 life if this Searing Barrage resolves. Might Searing Barrage the 1/1 here. Okay, if they play a Marrowleaf Pixie, I guess I Searing Barrage that one. Now I get to kill their 1/1 on blocks. Trebuchet is a draw. For sure. That blocks all of their flyers well. And gives me a way to damage my opponent without having to attack in. Very nice one there. Mystic Sanctuary, put an instant or sorcery on top of their library. That's so bad. Oh, they choose an Outmuscle. So say they could choose Stolen by Fae and get a bunch of 1/1s again, but I guess then we'd still have a Trebuchet, so yeah. Put the Outmuscle on top. The plan is to get rid of Trebuchet so they don't just die to that. Ooh, Surprise Reach! Please? Yes, Surprise Reach! Okay. I was like, oh, I hope this is not a trick. That would have been really bad for me. It's like Garen Brig Carver, because then they just get rid of our whole board once the Outmuscle lands. Yeah, Outmuscle is really... Actually, it's not going to kill the Trebuchet anymore because they attacked in. So the Trebuchet's too high toughness. So it has to kill the red cap instead. Okay, we've still got that Trebuchet. I should have just held up the Trebuchet on blocks. That was loose. Slaying Fire off the top. Let's see if it resolves. And it certainly does. That is going to be 6 wins and 1 loss now for this pretty devastating mono-red Throne of Eldraine deck. Here we are in game number 8. This could be the final game of Magic for today. We are 6-1, fighting for that 7th win. We are on the draw, unfortunately, but we do still have a good curve. 2, 3, and 4 mana plays with our mono-red aggro deck. Opponents on green-white. Green-white is often an adventure-focused strategy that can get a lot of 2-for-1 value. off of casting a bunch of adventures. They have cards like Edgewall Innkeeper that draws a card every time they cast a creature with an adventure. They have this 3/3 unicorn thing that puts +1/+1 counters on your creatures with adventures. A bunch of stuff like that. So they've got a Rosethorn Acolyte and a Silverflame Squire here. Acolyte's a little hard to attack through, and it gives them extra mana, so I might just shoot the Acolyte right now. I think I'm pretty cool with that, just bolting their mana dork. Go for a Lock Dragon next turn maybe, or a Rampart Smasher, Embereth Paladin. They're all pretty good. I think Embereth Paladin's the worst one to play next turn though, since they have a 2-power creature out. Although they are attacking us, they're going to have a 2/2 still. Okay. So still, Paladin looking pretty bad in this matchup. Rampart Smasher looking pretty legit. Let's get our dragon down. Could discard the Paladin because it looks bad in the matchup, but I still don't think I want too many more lands. Just keep playing 1 spell per turn every turn, it's fine. Get some Wolverine damage in and pass. We're going to take 4 damage this turn down to 14. Nothing wildly aggressive happening on either side of the table yet. There's the Edgewall Innkeeper that's going to draw them a ton of cards. That is a very, very bad time for us. So if they cast the Lonesome Unicorn, they draw a card. And even if they're casting creatures that they didn't cast the adventure of, they're drawing cards. So when they cast Rosethorn Acolytes, when they cast Silverflame Squires. So our opponent is going to be miles ahead of us in card advantage if they have more adventure cards on board. Robber of the Rich can try to make up for that a little bit, but they're going to have plenty of 2/2s on the board to just trade into the Robber. So yeah, here they go, cast a Shepherd the Flock and draw a card. And this may be Edgewall Innkeeper's game here. Innkeeper may just ruin our day a bit. Kind of like Rampart Smasher. Attack both and then Rampart Smasher here. Getting them down pretty low. They're down to 11 now. And we know our deck is full of flings. We have 2 flings and a slaying fire in there. Searing barrages also do extra damage to their face. So if we can just get them kind of low, even if they have a million cards, we can, as we've done in several earlier matchups, find ways to sneak in those last few points of damage. So if they don't get anything with reach or flying here, just a single Lock Dragon repeatedly getting in could be enough for us, with some other burn spell as a backup. And yeah, just a Lonesome Unicorn here, so not a massively threatening board state from our opponent here. We can keep chipping away with the Lock Dragon, trying to keep them low, keep them in reach of burn spells, and keep using the dragon to dig for those burn spells. Okay. I might actually just want to play multiple blockers here, so it's really hard for my opponent to crack back at me, so I can just keep doing the Lock Dragon digging thing. So I might want to discard the Embereth Paladin at this rate, because it's not getting through all this stuff. It's just going to trade into a 2/1, so I don't think Paladin's actually that sweet. Although, if I lose Rampart Smasher, it could be valuable. And right now, Rampart Smasher trades into 2 of their creatures. Probably actually discard one of these red caps, and then this turn I play Robber plus red cap. Sure. We get 2 creatures out of the way with Rampart Smasher. That's probably actually fine if I'm going to play 2 more creatures this turn after that, and still have an Embereth Paladin if I need a 5-power creature to fling. Okay. Knock 2 creatures out of the way. Probably should have sent in Wolverine as well, but that's just going to be a 1-for-1 trade. They block with a 3/3 and a 2/2. I just kill a 3/3. But yeah, I mean, they're down to 8 now. They are very, very much in range of a fling. If Lock Dragon doesn't die this turn, we just hit them once with Lock Dragon, cast Embereth Paladin and fling, and they're dead. So if I top deck fling, I just go Attack with Lock Dragon and then Mountain Paladin Fling. GG. Alright, Marrowleaf Rider, another 3-1 on the ground. Still rough to try to get into this board state. I can do a 1-for-1 trade into the Unicorn here, but then I don't get the card draw off the Robber. Probably take it. Another land. Definitely discard that to the Lock Dragon. Don't think I actually play an attack with this Embereth Paladin because it is an out for immediate lethal if I draw into a Fling. I almost feel like I only attack with Lock Dragon. What happens if I attack with Wolverine? Their only block that kills it and loses only one creature is to block with the Unicorn and the 2/2. They lose the Unicorn off that block. They can block these with the Unicorn. Maybe I do attack with everybody but Paladin. 6, 7, 8, 9 on the crackback maximum. It feels risky, but I'm kind of considering just dropping Paladin and attacking with everybody. I don't know. I'm gonna get a little weird with it. I'm gonna hold on to Paladin but attack with everybody else. They have an instant speed creature. They could use it now to stop me from drawing. Or an instant speed trick. And they did. So now I don't get the Robber of the Reach draw. Which is rough, but we drew the Fling, so we're just good. Okay. Well, glad I didn't play the Paladin. Although I guess if I played the Paladin... Actually, no, yeah, if I drew into Fling, it's an instant, so I could have cast it anyway, so I should have just played the Paladin. And not the right line. That's happened a lot today, where it's like, not the perfect lines, but the deck is busted. So we are still going to find a 7-1 draft out of this mono-red pile of some very good stuff, shooting all the way up to number 387 Mythic, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. I don't really care too much about my Mythic rank this season. The only time I really pay attention to that and try to get super high on Mythic is when it invites you to a limited qualifier weekend, but next month's qualifier weekend is Historic, which is a format that I don't play at all because I only play Sealed and Draft, primarily Draft, so not really trying to hit top 250 Mythic or anything, but it is still cool to get pretty high up there in the Mythic ranks, so really good stuff from this deck. Nice to be pretty high Mythic. And just have a really fun time with this one. Really, really fun to be able to draft just like mono red hyper aggro decks and draft. So cool stuff out of this draft. Were there any massive over and underperformers? Lock Dragon was a pretty big overperformer. Being our one evasive threat was pretty big, and being able to constantly keep us fueled for whatever we needed. Mostly discarding lands for more non-lands was awesome. Fling was a huge overperformer. Maybe I should have even ran the triple Fling, because this card was good in almost every single game. It was incredibly good quite often as well, because we had a lot of positions where our opponents had Charmed Sleeps on our creatures. We had one position where we managed to counter our opponent's card draw with it, and we had several games where we managed to just shoot our opponent in the face for 5 with it to finish the game. So Fling probably the biggest overperformer. That is not generally a card I take that often in draft, but in the mono red decks in Eldraine, Fling can do some things. When you've got some 5-power creatures, and we've got 4 5-power creatures in this deck, Fling can get pretty jiggy with it. Really, really good card. The Searing Barrages and Slaying Fires were excellent, but that was self-explanatory. We already knew that. But yeah, Lock Dragon and Flings, I'd say those are the biggest overperformers. Was there any massive underperformer? Yeah, Redcap never did anything really. It kind of just was a creature. But a 1/2 double strike was pretty good against the 1/1 flyers that one game, so it was pretty average. It was pretty whatever. Wolverine was pretty average, probably one of the weakest cards in our deck, but we already knew that when we put it in. I said that during deck building. And yeah, Gingerbrute did its thing. It got through multiple board states it never would have attacked through otherwise. Gained us some life when it died. yeah, everything kind of did its thing. Nothing did really horribly, but a couple cards did really well, like these flings here. So super sweet draft there. Very happy with that one. But that is going to end today's draft. I'm going to claim my prize and get on out of here. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, you can always like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like the YouTube algorithm to send some more of these videos to you in your recommended feeds. We've got some great stuff on the horizon. They are going to be doing Innistrad Crimson Vow quick drafts at the end of the month, a Dominar United, or not Dominar United, an original Dominaria sealed arena open in early November. They're going to be doing Chromatic Cube for a little bit at the end of the month, or the start of November, right around then, and potentially some mixed Premier drafts, which is like a Premier draft with 3 different random sets, something like that. I think they were talking about doing potentially at the end of the month. So some really cool variety limited formats on the way. I will be definitely playing at least one draft or sealed of each of those. So if you're interested in any limited format on the horizon, stick around. This is the channel for you. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.